KCBS News Time 6:18. Before we get to our traffic and weather together segment, breaking news on the Peninsula, Patty.
We're getting word of a huge explosion in San Bruno near the intersection of Skyline and San Bruno Avenue. We have a KCBS listener, Sharon, on the line. You can see something?
Actually, I can see a lot of smoke right now. Probably just a few minutes ago, all of us, we felt our houses shake and heard this huge sound. Thought it was an earthquake, ran out into the street and looked around and saw huge flames jumping into the air. Just as scary as could be, and a horrible roaring sound.
We're going to go right back to Sally Spencer. She's over this absolutely spectacular fire going on right now in San Bruno. Sally, tell us what you see.
I've never seen anything like this. It looks like the whole neighborhood is on fire. It's near Skyline and 380 in San Bruno. The ball of flame is still a good 20 to 30 feet in the air. At least a dozen houses on fire. The fire has jumped across at least 3 blocks, several trees on fire. Fire chiefs, fire crews have been blocking off major roadways here, which includes 380 and Skyline Boulevard.
We have a listener named Jason on the line with us. Jason, where are you and what can you tell us about this fire?
I was at the driving range on Sneath Lane below where the explosion happened. As I was walking in the parking lot, I heard several concussive thumps. I looked up in the sky thinking it was possibly a plane crash, but did not see anything. And then there was just this pause after this concussive thump, and then this huge wall of flame about 6 or 7 stories high just shot up in the air. It was a gigantic explosion. It was a pretty big flame. I mean, you're talking 6, 7 stories high.
Right.
And I immediately looked for plane debris because it just sounded like a crash. But then immediately thought gas leak because we just did not see any kind of debris flying through the air. It was just flame straight up.
We do know on scene right now one of our team of reporters covering this. Let's go live to the newsline and check in with Doug Sovereign. Doug, can you tell us where you are, Doug, and what you can see?
Yeah, Jeff and Patty, I'm on the scene here off of Sneath Lane in the San Bruno area, and I'm telling you, whatever it is that's burning, whether it's a gas station or whatever it is that blew up and caught fire here, is still generating an awful lot of fuel because there are just big orange balls of flame just leaping up. I'm talking 5, 10 stories up off the ground, putting up practically a mushroom cloud of very thick black smoke. And these flames are spreading to houses, and there are many, many trees and houses surrounding this area. I'm sure there are houses that have already gone up in flames here. I'm pulling over because the police have shut down Sneath. They've shut down San Bruno. I'm not sure. Looks like we're going to have to continue on foot from here. But it's a massive fire, as big as I've seen in a very long time. Still a very active fire. I don't see firefighters putting any water on it yet. Maybe they are, but I think they may be a little bit farther away because the heat is intense. You could just feel incredibly intense heat, very thick smoke. It's obviously a terrible emergency. We can get as close as we can and see if we can find out a little bit more about exactly what's going on.
All right, very good. That's our own Doug Sovereign.
Let's get another view from the ground, Jeff. We're going to bring into the mix our very own Mark Seelig.
I just spoke to a PG&E crew person who just walked by and said, "What's going on down there? Was it a gas leak?" He said all he knows is that they have a big problem with their gas line. They can't even get close enough to inspect it right now. I've seen a number of injured people and ambulances. Okay, being told to move back now. The air tanker's coming in, and there's going to be dropping some fire retardant.
We're going to try another one of our reporters on the scene. This is Doug Sovereign. Doug, can you hear us?
Yeah, Jeff and Patty, I've got you. I'm on Glenview Drive, just south of Plymouth. The fire is burning off the end of Glenview Drive, but it's off the end of a lot of streets here. I don't dare go any closer down the end of this block because if the wind shifted, this would not be a safe place to be. And wow, just a huge orange fireball. You can just feel the heat every time one of those. There's another one. Another one of them comes off of this thing. Cal Fire helicopter just went overhead and then dumped a load of water, but there's still very thick black smoke billowing off of this. I've been talking to a lot of the people out here, the firefighters, the police officers. No one seems to be able to say exactly what happened or how this started. It may be that anyone who knows that was too close to it to tell us about it now. There are a lot of people in this surrounding cul-de-sacs, all these little streets here in the area, who are being tended to by medical personnel. We're talking about some older people who don't have any visible wounds that I can see, but they may be having breathing difficulty or may have had some other problems brought on by the stress of this event. Obviously, a very scary situation. The helicopter's coming back now with some more water. I don't think it's dropping flame retardant. That looks like water. There's a couple of CAL FIRE aircraft overhead. And again, all the emergency personnel here are desperately trying to fight this thing or keep people away from it or treat people who are affected by it. So there hasn't been anyone that I'm aware of yet who's been able to tell us anything. And when I ask, they just shake their head and say, we don't know. There's a lot of speculation. Here comes the helicopter again. There's a lot of speculation that it seems obviously to be fueled by natural gas or jet fuel or some sort of fuel or gas product because it's so intense and unrelenting and just bright orange flame keeps rolling out of this pit of fire here off these suburban streets. So, again, that's just speculation from everyone in the neighborhood as they desperately try to fight this terrible fire. Live in San Bruno, Doug Salvern, KCBS.
Right now we're going to go to our own Chris Filippi. When we last checked in with him, he was trying to tell us that evacuations are underway. Chris?
Yeah, Patty, they still are, as you can imagine, the cell service sketchy in a chaotic situation like this. So where I'm at Sneath and Claremont, there are evacuations going underway right now. San Mateo police are here, sheriff's here, everybody forcing everybody out of this area. They're very concerned about the wind direction and the smoke that is still pouring from this fire. It's still going very strong. My particular location, there are a half dozen police cars here. I count 2 ambulances and a fire unit. Some people are being treated here. In fact, I just saw an elderly woman who was sitting next to one of the stretchers, apparently some form of exhaustion. She was being treated. No direct injuries, no flame injuries from the fire so far, but still a lot of concern. They're telling everybody here to go to the Bay Hill Shopping Center. We want to get that information out. They are evacuating people again to the Bay Hill Shopping Center, and there are still a lot of people, as you can imagine, who are just standing here who will not go because they want to see what happens with this fire. They live here. They're very concerned about their homes. And right now, information is very limited on which homes exactly have been burned, how severe the damage is to those homes. As you can imagine, just a lot of questions and a lot of anxiety here. Some neighbors taking it upon themselves to direct traffic in the streets. I've seen that a couple of times on my way here. And an absolute chaotic situation with CAL FIRE responding. You can probably hear the helicopter in the background, so air units have been deployed as well to this massive fire.
Doug, last we checked with you, you were on Glenview Drive?
No, I'm now at pretty much ground zero of this fire. It's Claremont and Vermont is where we are. Massive flames, homes. I mean, I'll try to count for you how many homes I see burning that are down to their frames or in some cases down to their chimneys and foundations. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I can count 11 homes that are either very badly burning or already burned to the ground. I'm sure there are far more than that. You can feel the heat from this flame. The water, they're chasing us out of here now. They're dropping water from above. They're putting water from ladder trucks. They're finding, well, they can't save these homes anymore, but they're trying to get this fire out here. And again, this is where it started, but no one has been able to tell us what happened, what the ignition source is. PG&E is out here now. Whatever's fueling it is still fueling it. It's been very difficult for them to put these flames out. These streets, Claremont, Vermont, Glenview, have all been evacuated. There are homes where the garage doors are up, the front doors are open. People just fled and ran out of the house and ran up the block. They didn't even close the doors of their houses behind them. There are cars burned, trees burned, and again, we still don't even know how this started and what ignited all of this, but this is the spot here, Claremont and Vermont. It seems to be ground zero of where this fire began, and we're still raging out of control.
We're going to check in with our own Mark Seelig, who has a little bit more information regarding PG&E's input as to what's happening here. Mark?
I noticed a PG&E worker coming back up. He looked to be maybe a senior member of the team, and he was walking back up the street on Crestview there, and I said, do you know what happened? Do you know if it was a gas leak? And he said, all I know is that something bad happened to our gas, and we can't get in close enough now to find out what's going on. So that was what I'd heard. I'd heard a number of witnesses and people who live in the area as I was walking to the scene saying they heard the same thing. They heard a big whoop, and then all of a sudden just a concussive blast. So they all thought that definitely had something to do with natural gas or something. That's just speculation on their part, but PG&E seems to be looking at that as a possible cause of this fire. I could tell you as I'm looking at the flames, something was feeding those flames, and it looked to be like a gas, a natural gas type of situation, because these flames were just rolling over and over.
We also have Sally Spencer in Sky 4 up above. Sally, give us the bird's eye perspective. I can imagine how spectacular these flames must look from your vantage point.
The giant fireball that was shooting out has actually dimmed, and you just see the glow of the neighborhood of the several dozens of houses that are still on fire. And we can actually see fire crews coming out from San Mateo and across the San Mateo Bridge, headed towards this direction in San Bruno.
Our own Doug Sovereign very, very close to the flames.
Yeah, Patty and Jeff, way too close. We're getting water on our heads from the CAL FIRE helicopter that's dropping water on this place. What used to be Glenview and Claremont, there isn't anything there anymore, is where this seems to have happened. And this just whole development here, I mean, for at least a couple of blocks, has just been laid waste. And they're still pouring a lot of water on, more than a dozen homes that are burning to the ground. A lot of smoke still coming up. The larger fireball seems to be gone, but now you've got little pockets of flame and, 10 or 12 houses all around me here, no more than 50 feet from where we are that are burning, and that firefighters from Daly City and Pacifica and San Francisco and South City are all trying to put out. Something very big blew up here and spread fire over a very wide area, and a lot of people have lost their homes, and I hate to think about anyone who was right here 100 feet away from me when this thing happened.
We have a KCBS listener by the name of Laura joining us live on the KCBS Newsline. Now, Laura, I understand that you were getting your car filled up with gas right when this all started. Tell us what happened.
Well, I was at the gas station on the corner of Skyline and San Bruno Avenue, and right across the street is an open field. And I heard this sound like a rolling, thunderous, loud thing, and it got stronger and louder and louder and louder. And then I looked behind me, and right across the street in the field was this explosion out of the ground of fire. So I assumed it was a gas line because of what it looked like. It just was this explosion out of the ground. It came right out of the ground, straight up into the air. It was a gigantic wall of fire. So then I quickly got out of the gas station, and then I turned around in the neighborhood and came back down, and so I literally have been about a half a block from it the whole time. And about 5 minutes ago, they were able to put out the fire, and literally that thing that was coming out of the ground never stopped. It was always the same strength, the same height. So, and it was going in a line on the ground, so it most likely was some kind of a explosion of a gas line underneath the ground. And it was just coming right out of the ground like a wall of fire.
How did you respond, and did other people around you respond? Were you scared? Were you like, this is going to be something really big?
It was otherworldly. It was almost like, oh my gosh, the minute I saw it, I knew there was no way they were going to be able to contain that fire because it was massive, and it was this explosion so high in the sky. And I thought, this thing, you just couldn't, it was so huge, you couldn't tell if it was going to leap over San Bruno Avenue, if it was going to leap over to the gas station and explode the gas station. It was nothing you can even ever conceive of in your imagination.
Could you feel it on the ground? Was it like an earthquake? Was it that type of explosion?
It was kind of like the loudest thunder you have ever heard coming out of the ground.
We're going to check back in with our own Doug Sovereign. Doug, I understand that you have some information concerning the cause of this big explosion and fire.
Well, that's right, Jeff and Patty, here at Claremont and Glenview, which is sort of the epicenter of where it happened. PG&E crew has just told me that it was a natural gas line that ignited. They don't know how. They don't know if somebody was digging and hit it. They don't know if there was a rupture in the line. That they haven't figured that out, but they have determined that this was a natural gas line that blew up and caused the fire and then fueled the fire for, almost 2 hours now, about 2 hours now. They have figured that much out. They still don't know why the line exploded, but it is confirmed that it's a natural gas line, as a lot of us here were theorizing. That is the cause of this massive fire, which is dying down and being controlled somewhat, but a lot of that is because these houses have burned to the ground, and there's not much more fuel there, and obviously the fuel line itself seems to have exhausted that. It's burned that out. So now it's property and homes that are burning and not that fuel. There are people starting to trickle back into this neighborhood to check on their homes, and they're really overwhelmed, and they tell amazing stories. This one man said his home, as we've heard from so many witnesses, that his home just shook. He thought it was a plane crash. He ran outside and opened the door. He said it felt like he was opening the oven door, that the heat just hit him in the face. It was so hot. and he ran out, and he's an elderly gentleman. He got out. He's lived here 55 years. He's very concerned about his neighbors. He says he knows all the people who live on these streets.
Right now, I want to bring in Margie Schaefer into the mix. Margie is in San Bruno. I believe, Margie, you are at the evacuation center that's been set up?
I'm actually at the Bay Hill Shopping Center.
Okay.
This is opposite side of 280 from where the fire is occurring, and a lot of people have come here. It's a strip mall area, Starbucks, some restaurants, a CVS, people looking to get away from the flames and gathering and talking. And I spoke with Christina Veraflor. She drove from Napa because her mother lives in the neighborhood.
And I couldn't find them, so I rushed down here to find them. And thank God they're in the movies. But I still have friends on that block that we can't find.
She says that the landlines are out. She can't get through to her friends by cell phone. There's no answer. Trying to track down neighbors. A lot of raw nerves at this point. Gilda Tarzia lives in the area. What did you say to your daughter when she just called you?
I said I'm alive. Everybody thinks I'm dead. Oh my God! And they think my house is gone. I know material things don't matter. As long as we're alive, we're okay.
Many people here left with the shirts on their back, obviously a sense of desperation, wanting to know what happened to their homes, wanting to know what happened to their neighbors, wanting to know what happened to their loved ones. Live in San Bruno, Margie Schaefer, KCBS.
There have been some evacuation centers set up. Our own Mark Seelig is at one of them. Mark, where are you?
I'm at the Veterans Memorial Recreation Center, Patty. This is on City Park Way. It's right off of Crystal Springs Road near Oak Street. People are starting to stream in here now. I did run into a number of people, several of them, and Patty, a lot of people with tears in their eyes. They all lived right in the sort of ground zero area, if you will, and all concerned about family members. I spoke to one woman who had just an absolutely harrowing tale to tell. She told me that she was just sitting down around 6:15 to eat dinner with her son when all of a sudden she heard this just loud sound. It sounded, she said it sounded like fighter jets outside her house, and then out of nowhere she heard the explosion. Her son grabbed her by the arm and said, "Mom, we're out of here." Grabbed her and they walked out the door. She said she saw flames everywhere. Somehow, some way they were able to get into the car. She is now here with her husband at this rec center. The son went back up the hill to go try to find a friend and a friend's mother who apparently he couldn't hear from, and she has not heard from her son since. So she's obviously a little anxious, more than a little anxious, I would say.
John Evans is with us in the studio as well at this point. And John, you also have some sketchy details at this point as to where some of the other victims have been sent.
Well, I've just got off the phone with Carl Sonken, who is with the Kaiser facility in South San Francisco. 15 people have been taken there. He could not tell me the extent of their injuries at this point. But he did say that some or all may be transferred to burn units around the Bay Area. He did not identify which units those may be or when that may happen, but they've received 15 people and could be receiving more. Again, that's at Kaiser, South San Francisco.
Okay, so we've got 15 from Kaiser and we have 5 from San Francisco General. Of the 5 at San Francisco General, 2 are in critical condition. All those people brought in were being treated for burns, and we have a feeling that there are more to come.
Doug Sovereign, our KCBS reporter, one of several on the scene right now for us, is on the line.
When this happened about 2.5 hours ago, 6:15 or so, the people here, as we've been reporting, it's happened so quickly. Jerry Hiller is a man who was sitting in his home here on Vermont near Claremont when he says he thought a plane hit his house, or maybe there was a massive earthquake.
Watching the TV ball game, and a loud explosion rocked the house, shook the house, like several booms. Ran outside, out into the street, and looked down the street, and there was a big ball of fire coming up, and you could feel the heat.
He describes a towering orange fireball just emanating from the ground, the heat like an oven, he says. After, 2 hours of confusion or so, we finally got the word from the PG&E people here near Claremont and Glenview that it was a natural gas pipeline, though they still don't know why it ruptured, and the fire just roared through this neighborhood. It's taken one house after another. The flames coming right up behind Leslie Nieves' house.
The back street of behind my house is completely on fire. The street that's going up towards San Bruno Avenue, it's a whole row of homes that I'm sure have gone up in fire. And, helicopters everywhere. All the streets, all the entrances, this whole area has been blocked off. It's unreal.
Let's go to one of those evacuation centers right now. Our own Mark Seelig is at one and can join us and tell us a little bit more about what's happening there. Mark?
I'm joined now here with Jerry, who lived in the neighborhood. And Jerry, you were describing a pretty serious tale a second ago. You live about 100 yards, you say, from where this whole thing occurred. Tell me a little bit more about what you were doing and what happened.
Okay, I was in the process of barbecuing dinner. The ground shook like crazy, and I heard a big loud roar. I thought there was a plane crashing, except the roar kept roaring. I went out to my backyard, and about 100 yards or so across the canyon, I could see the trees burning and a big yellow-orange ball. And came back in the house. We grabbed the water out of the refrigerator and headed for our cars. And we got in the cars, and people were standing out on the street looking around, and I could see planes that looked like they were less than 100 feet away from the house. So we split.
And you don't know what condition your house is at this moment?
I have no clue. The sad thing is I left my 57 Chevy in the garage.
Okay. All right, yeah, but Jerry's okay, and so is his wife, trying to figure out exactly what to do. There's a lot of space here, a lot of food, and a place to hunker down for these people.
While folks worry about their loved ones, there were some near escapes. We're going to go to the KCBS Newsline now. Margie Schaefer, another one of our reporters in our team coverage tonight. She is standing by with some very emotional stories. Margie?
Well, that's right, Jane. I'm here at the Bay Hill Shopping Center. This is on 851 Cherry Avenue. It's across the way from on 280 on the other side from where the fire is. This parking lot is full. This is more of an informal staging area, a meeting area. A lot of people coming here to get something to eat, to meet their neighbors, to figure out what to do next. Miranda Guerrera lives at 1121 Fairmont Drive, and she was home with her mom and her brother when the explosion occurred.
And I was just so terrified. I didn't know what happened, so I ran to our front door, and our front yard was on fire. I didn't know what to do. Our backyard was on fire. Everything was on fire, so eventually we just ran outside of the house through the front door. And then we looked at the house, and here was our house, and there was like a huge... It was like a cloud. I swear, it was like a volcanic eruption right next to our house.
They know they have lost their house and cat. She was wearing a tank top when she left. Her brother in his martial arts uniform. They now need clothes for school.
We continue now with KCBS reporter Chris Filippi, who is on a neighborhood street very close to the fire scene. Chris.
Yeah, Jane, I'm right in front of the fire here. I'm at Glenview Drive near Claremont. This is where the fire is still burning. We're just a few hundred feet from where literally at least 24 homes have been burned, most of them to the ground. It's a horrible scene. There's still a massive firefighter presence here, and they're still trying to knock down the flames. I'm standing next to Neil Wild. He's a member of the San Mateo Fire Department who lives in this area. You heard the explosion, and you joined the response, it sounds like, immediately. Can you just describe what you saw and how widespread the damage is?
Well, this is just the flame ball was 100 feet in the air, and at that point, there wasn't only a couple homes that were going, but after a while, the whole neighborhood started to go up. Along next to where the fire is, there's a park and trees, which blew the fire down into that other neighborhood, and those houses went up very quickly.
And you told me that the explosion was so powerful it actually left a crater in the intersection here at Glenview and Claremont.
There's a crater the size of the intersection. A four-way intersection is that big.
And it blew asphalt into some of the homes?
It blew asphalt all the way down the street. It blew the water main and the gas main. That's why they had such a problem. There was no water.
Other items that are of need, of course, not only emotional support and the physical things, but blood donations as well. We're going to go to the KCBS Newsline now and speak with Lisa Block of the Blood Centers of the Pacific. Lisa, thanks for joining us. We understand there's a very special need for a certain type of blood.
Right, exactly. In an emergency, people need to be given type O negative. That is the one that can be given to anybody, but we're always in short supply of it. We do have enough to get us through this evening, but we're really going to need people to come in tomorrow and over the weekend if they're type O negative or any type to make sure that our supplies stay as full as we need.
We understand there may be word on at least the first casualty. Chris?
I'm at Fairmont Drive and Claremont Drive, which is right in the heart of where the fires are going. And I can tell you that just about 20 feet from me, there is a body covered in an emergency blanket. I had that confirmed by a battalion chief here at the scene, right in front of Claremont Drive. And the damage is total where I'm at. The only way to tell how many homes are here are to count the chimneys. And I've counted 16 so far, and I could probably count more if not for the smoke. It's very hard to breathe here. I have active fires on all four sides of me right now, and it is just an unbelievable, horrible scene here. Firefighters are still trying to put down these flames, but, I mean, there's so many of them that are still smoldering. There's only so many spots they can go to. All around me, there are cars that are completely burned out and melted down to the ground. Not an ounce of rubber anywhere. There's just ash everywhere, and, of course, the unfortunate word that I was just told by a battalion chief, that in fact there is at least one fatality. The body is still here at the scene, wrapped in an emergency blanket.
Up and down Glenview and Claremont and Vermont, all these streets surrounding what was ground zero for this explosion, the people who got out in time are telling the same story, and it goes pretty much like this.
The house started shaking, and then I heard this big explosion, and then I told my mom, we're having an earthquake, and then the initial shake stopped, and then I heard this real zzz, kind of like whizzing sound. I said, is it a tornado? So I looked out my window and could see, flame, and then my kids came inside from outside saying there was an explosion, so then we all ran outside and came over here.
Escaping the orange rush of fire that just burst from the ground and turned these several blocks surrounding us here into a terrifying inferno. PG&E crew here at the epicenter of this telling us that a natural gas line ruptured. They're still not sure why. Why doesn't matter that much to Saad Allah. He was frantically trying to save his house as the flames spread up Vermont Street.
It's like a war zone. That's what I see on the TV, on the war.
Well, war zone is certainly an apt description. It really did feel hellish at times. It's quite a bit better now, though, but the impact and aftermath will last a long, long time, I'm sure. Live in San Bruno, Doug Sovereign, KCBS.
We're also going to connect now with KCBS's Margie Schaefer. She has been hearing all kinds of very emotional stories. Folks are still looking for those unaccounted. Some have found each other and are just grateful that they all made it out alive. Close calls for many. Yes, Margie?
That's exactly right, Jane. I'm here at the Bay Hill Shopping Center. I just spoke with Bob Pellegrini, and he lived, I should say, at 1701 Claremont. That's at the corner of Claremont and Glenview.
We lost everything. What you see with me, my wife, my brother, my son came out with is all we own. That's it. The whole house went down. We didn't have a chance to get anything out of the house. We were lucky to get out alive. My brother was the last guy out of the house. We thought he died. I thought he was dead in the house, but he ended up running out. His back of his head was all red from the heat while he ran up the street.
And what do you hear about your neighbors?
I know they're all evacuated now. I know the neighbor across the street went now. There may be some fatalities because Levon, who's very incapacitated, that lives on the corner house where the flame was projecting, that house was up in flames. I don't know if anybody had a chance to get out. I don't know. I honestly think that you're going to hear some fatalities. I'm almost pretty sure of it.
A lot of raw nerves, a lot of people trying to track people down. Here's a deputy with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Department, Sean O'Donnell, who set up an evacuation check-in center. There is a table here, too, with the Red Cross.
We're asking anyone that's been displaced by the fire to come down here to the Bay Hill Shopping Center. We have American Red Cross here that will help with placing people on houses if they need it for tonight. We have food. We have a shelter set up in the Samtrans bus here for anyone that wants to get out of the wind. And it's kind of a check-in point for anyone looking for someone else that they may not be able to connect with at this point.
And that's a real concern because I've been talking to people just in this parking lot. So what are you telling people who can't find friends and loved ones to do?
We're telling people to sign, if they're looking for people that are missing, we're telling them to sign in on the roster here, put the people that they're looking for next to the roster. Hopefully the people that are coming down here, they're looking at the roster also to see if their name's on there, is someone looking for them. And that's how we're hoping to connect people.
Now, where I'm at right now is at Glenview and Earl, and this is where the explosion happened. I'm standing about 25 feet away from the impact crater. I can't tell you how deep it is, but it is completely filled with water because of the firefighting efforts. They've been pouring water into here, as you can imagine. But this is a massive hole right in the middle of the intersection. It's actually turned up part of the street so that the cement is in layers and it's melted. And one of the most amazing things here at the scene is that a piece of the pipe that exploded, and this was pointed out to me by one of the fire crews here, was elevated into the air, this massive piece of pipe, and it is now dangling from the top of a telephone pole, which is about 200 feet from where I'm standing, and is about 50 feet in the air, and it's still hanging there, just to give you some sense for the force of this massive explosion that has caused so much damage. Not a hard number yet in terms of the number of homes that have been damaged. I've counted at least 33. And it seems like that number just keeps growing the more I walk around and look at the massive damage that's been done by this. It's a really terrible scene here, but at least from where I'm standing at this one particular area near the, if you will, the epicenter, the flames are starting to die down. In fact, it's almost like the eye of the storm. This is one of the few areas where there is not a lot of smoke. It's blowing all around me, though.
It really is eerie now. I am, I imagine from what Chris said of his location, he's got to be within half a block of where I am, but I can't see him through the smoke because there's all this billowing white smoke. I mean, it's so much better and markedly improved from what it was a couple hours ago when you had this mushroom cloud of black smoke and a wall of flame. Now it's whiffs of white smoke, and as they put more water on the still burning homes, there'll be another cloud of white smoke coming off. But it feels like a battlefield after the battle is over. It's pretty eerie as the smoke wafts across, being blown by this breeze from the east. And as Chris said, the fires are now, they're more than smoldering, but they're burning in the homes that are still have something left in them to burn. And I fear that our initial count of how many homes burned was way too low, because it's certainly 3 dozen. It's probably more than that, because I'm seeing now, as the smoke clears a bit, far more houses burned than we could see before when much of this was obscured, and it was just a hellish scene.
KCBS News Time, 10:34. Back out into the field we go. Team coverage continuing here on KCBS. Joining us now, KCBS reporter Chris Filippi.
Yeah, Larry, firefighters are starting to make some progress against the flames, but as they do that, they get into these homes and they're making some grim discoveries. I just had a firefighter tell me about 5 minutes ago that he found 2 more bodies in one of these homes. And again, we're in the area here in San Bruno, Glenview and Claremont, where all this damage has been done. No word on any identity, of course, but this is the possibility that they face as they move into these homes that have been so severely damaged. Many of them just burned to the ground. And what's happening now is there are a few hot spots that are still burning, but crews really are starting to get a handle on it. They're being helped by the wind, which is starting to die down. And you'll recall that's been a big concern all evening, is the strength of these winds really fanning the flames of these fires. And the sound you hear in the background is just some of the gas that's burning off from some of these damaged homes.
Let's go now to this news conference. San Bruno fire officials with this news conference on this big fire in San Bruno.
Broken gas line, high pressure gas line. None of this can be confirmed. We still have yet to get to the scene of the origin of the fire. We've got 53 homes have been severely damaged. Up to 120 homes have some fire damage at this point. Fires are still burning. Our west flank was our biggest challenge and probably the heaviest damage of the residential area. We are holding. Right now, we're confident that we will hold the fire to the existing perimeter.
The fire is still burning in areas of the impact zone. Chris, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Larry, it's going to continue to burn for quite some time. There's a lot of gas that's still feeding some of these flames. I can hear it just burning off the gas that's left in the system here after this explosion. Just completely devastated this middle-class neighborhood. It really is just a barren, burned-out landscape now. One chimney after the other, marking the devastation. Most of the homes that I am seeing right now are just nothing but chimneys and debris. In fact, dozens of homes have been destroyed by this fire, and crews right now beginning the very grim task of going through some of the debris and seeing if people were trapped inside. A very grim task, and unfortunately one that a couple of firefighters have told me has already revealed 3 bodies.
Derek Smith in Sky 3, who, as the sun comes up, is getting a first look at the devastation from this explosion and fire.
Janice, thank you. It is truly shocking as the sun comes up here. There's a low smoke, not very much, sort of wafting its way down the hill toward the Golden Gate National Cemetery. Some smoldering embers on some of the houses that remain on the street in this neighborhood, where a war zone really is the best way to describe it. The houses are completely leveled, trees just blackened sticks with no branches left standing in backyards or what used to be backyards. Houses completely leveled down to the foundation.